There's a lot of flexibility, but I actually think now Kawhi's from the area, right? He's Riverside.
So he grew up partly in Riverside, but was born and spent some of his childhood in South LA.
Okay, so he's a local guy.
Yes.
He's a quiet person, and maybe the limelight of the Lakers and the whole hoopla and the LeVar Ball factors and all those things. Maybe it's more appealing to Kawhi to go to the Clippers. Now, the Laker fans who listen to the show would say that's ridiculous. Why would anyone ever do that? It's not for us to say, right? Like, it's possible that someone might prefer the Clippers. And maybe Kawhi is one of those people. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's possible. And the Clippers have real ammunition in expiring contracts, in talent, in the sense of Tobias Harris. You look at him as talent. You can argue maybe a team would like Sindarius Thornwell. A team might like Juwan Evans. There aren't, and maybe Sam Decker. I don't know if any of the young guys are anywhere close to the Laker caliber, but are the Lakers even offering those young guys? If they're not, and if the Lakers are going after Paul George and LeBron James with their cap room and not pursuing Kawhi, you know, at a significant pace, then maybe the Clippers aren't even competing when it comes to those young guys. So obviously we can talk about other teams. Philadelphia is always a team that can get involved. But Kawhi is the decider, because if he's going into the last year of his deal, any team that wants to trade for him, he can say, you know what, I'm not going to extend there. So he could really scuttle and make it really hard on the Spurs. So just some food for thought there.
Yeah, and that's all obviously assuming that the Spurs would actually try to trade Kawhi. We still don't know what that situation is. There's some great reporting on it on ESPN recently about the details of the situation and, you know, the injury and how there's maybe a little bit of mistrust because there's a potential disagreement in diagnosis in the past and in this situation. So there's a lot to be sussed out. But, you know, I think in some respects you could say that the Clippers can offer a more interesting package because they have those picks. And the Spurs have a history of finding great players in the middle of the first round, like Kawhi Leonard. He was the 15th pick in the draft.
Well, they traded George Hill, who was, you know, an important piece to get Kawhi. So it's that potential's there.
And there's look, that's a range 12-13 you can still obviously get great players.
It's very tangible right now. These teams are working out guys right now. They could fall in love with two players right there, and they're on the same timeline. They grow at the same rate.
And they have a young guy in Dejounte Murray who they believe in at a point guard. You know, and that's a range 12-13 where maybe you can get a guy like Villanova's Michael Bridges, who's kind of like, I mean, I'm not going to say he's Kawhi, but when you talk about what he can be defensively with his length and the size of his hands and his lateral quickness, he can be that potentially. And he's already a better shooter than Kawhi was coming out of college. So there's going to be some interesting players that I'm sure the Spurs would consider that if they wanted to go more the rebuild, retool route, seeing the writing on the wall with Kawhi, if that's a situation, that the Clippers could offer them a very interesting out.
All right, I'll go one further because this is what, you know, I've done this for the Lakers, right? I've gone through and say, you know, how could is it mathematically possible for the Lakers to get Kawhi Leonard, LeBron James, and Paul George? The answer is yes. Very difficult, but possible. So let's do the same for the Clippers, and it's really not even that difficult. So LeBron makes $35.6 million next year if he opts in, which is basically even slightly more than if he opts out. If he resigns, he'll actually make a couple $100,000 less in the first year. The Clippers would have a problem probably in trading for Kawhi and then getting under the cap and then going after LeBron and then still having a competitive team. Doesn't really add up. But as we've discussed, the best way would be as if Cleveland was willing to do a trade. He opts in, basically pull what happened with Chris Paul, right? Chris Paul opted into his final year of his contract and was traded to the Rockets. He opted in contingent on the trade. And so LeBron could do the same. And if he were to do the same, it's really not difficult to get up to the kind of money if you're talking about DeAndre Jordan. Now you could say, well, the Cavs are facing heavy taxes. They wouldn't want DeAndre. Fine. You can do multiple teams. multiple team trades are pretty rare during the season, but they're not entirely uncommon after the season, in the off season, right?
Is that just because executives have a little bit more time?
Well, you don't have to worry about roster count.
Right.
More teams have a lot of cap room. Once you get into the season, cap room is at a premium. Most of the cap room has been spent. Maybe there's one or two teams that has it, but it becomes harder. But when you get up to the off season, there's just more flexibility. You can have up to 20 players on your roster, so you don't have to cut players just to make the roster space, et cetera, et cetera. So look, DeAndre at $24 million, if he was to go to some other team in a multi-team deal, that's almost enough. Like you basically, they can bring in 125% of that basically. So that equals 30 points. That's $30.2 million roughly that they already are at. So you just throw in a Wesley Johnson into that and you're there, right? So if you're doing something like Tobias Harris to the Spurs with one of the picks, and some filler. Remember, Kawhi doesn't make that much, relatively speaking. And then you're doing DeAndre plus a pick, the other pick to Cleveland, or maybe DeAndre's going somewhere else, and it's a 3-team thing. It's not. It's just not impossible. It's not even entirely. We talked. I wrote about the Rockets and how they can get LeBron. It's far more complicated because of their situation. And they've already taken steps to kind of solve that, where they same boat, they need to have him opt in. It's doable, but it's more complex. It's harder for the Lakers to get out of the whole thing. It becomes more complex. They want to keep Julius Randle, et cetera. Like there's all kinds of complexities. For the Clippers, it's really not that hard.
Are you hiring? Posting your position to job sites and waiting for the right people to see it?
ZipRecruiter knew that there was a smarter way, so they built a platform that finds the right job candidates for you.
ZipRecruiter learns what you're looking for, identifies people with the right experience, and invites them to apply to your job.
These invitations have revolutionized how you find your next hire.
In fact, 80% of employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site in just one day.
And ZipRecruiter does not stop there. They even spotlight the strongest applications you receive, so you never miss a great match.
The right candidates are out there. ZipRecruiter is how you find them.
Businesses of all sizes trust ZipRecruiter for their hiring needs.
Right now, our listeners can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free.
Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/LAEJ. That's ZipRecruiter.com/LAEJ. One more time. ZipRecruiter.com/LAEJ.
ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.